Welcome, everybody, to the Authentic Self Show on the nacho'scafe podcast, where you will hear more than one perspective on facing the world authentically. In life, sometimes we wear a shield to protect our sensitivity. We put on an extra layer of skin to guard us from outside threats of our environments. But the question is, does that truly protect us, or could it block the sense to feel things? In this episode of Authentic Self, we discuss thick skin in the working environment.
Again. So yeah, getting into it. Thick skin.
Thick skin. Who would like
Get
to
it
start on
started.
what you think?
Honestly,
Yes.
Go
for
for it.
me, it felt like, and even just thinking about it, like I was thinking about it earlier, I realized like the concept of having thick skin for me isn't a constant. I feel like my skin is thicker in some areas than in others. Because like I feel like if I'm at work, when it comes to taking criticism or feedback, it's just like my work mentality is like, okay, feedback is a gift. You take it, you can use it. If not, you can put it in the closet and leave it there. That's why they have gift receipts. So you like you can always return it in some way, shape, or form. Versus it being in my personal life, like there are times where I have to actually catch myself because I'm reacting more than what I should. Like I know that in any other setting, these words, like if I'm out somewhere and I'm like being targeted and having a conversation or something like that, like race, gender, whatever that like the topic may be, if I'm out in certain areas, it wouldn't necessarily affect me versus it being like in my inner circle. So I feel like sometimes my skin is thicker in areas and thinner in others. But then that also like comes with like I feel like a level of comfort. Like because having thick skin means you have to have like for me like a level of guard up. And like when it's people who are outside of my immediate circle, like acquaintances, like coworkers, people I see in passing, people from like people like that, then even though they're kind of close to me, they're in my life, there's still a certain guard there. Like they're not like in my personal circle. Like I don't text them regularly, like how we have a text group. Like I talk to y'all regularly. So it's not as if like, okay, you can say something and it doesn't faze me, but the closer you get to me, that same type of conversation, it kind of gets to me more because I feel like the closer you get to me, the more I'm letting my guard down. And the more I let my guard down, when we have those types of conversations, if I find out something new, like if we have like a different viewpoint or if you have like an opinion of me or something like that, and it kind of like fits me back, I feel like it kind of throws me because I'm in a situation where like my skin is okay to be thinner because we close, but now you hit me with something that the back of my mind, like that defense part of my mind is like, well, why are you reacting like this? Because this isn't something new that you've come across. It's just new in this environment. So that's what I feel like when it comes to having thick skin. I feel like it's not something that's consistent for me just because I'm always realizing like where I'm at and what's the level of thickness of my skin in that area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Wow. Big time.
Yeah, and I like the
Big
fact
time.
that you said levels.
I love how you embrace the thin skin, right? Because it's like that was like a big like wake up for me, because I feel like a lot of times in the process of mastering thick skin, the process of mastering my emotions, I turn a blind eye to those thin areas of my life, which are also super important. And I think it's part of like to me, thick skin is a lot more than just I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Because when I found myself using that expression, I don't give a fuck. I'm like, okay, I'm angry. I obviously do give a fuck. So that skin is not thick there. I think to me, what thick skin is learning to see what makes me super mega uncomfortable. And that's obviously like, I had that aha moment right now. That's obviously where my skin is thin. So instead of being frustrated about it, what can I do? What things can I practice in life so I can master my emotional well-being, so I could be aware of my emotions, so I could develop, again, that thick skin and not allow the opinions of others, the judgment of others, the judgment of my own committees that are going in there sometimes. It's like, whoa, where's this coming from? Affect me from what I'm working on producing in that moment, right? I tend to be a person that has like all these dimensions. So like I have to really bring my awareness and focus on one thing and really be confident in what I'm doing and develop that self-confidence around it. I think that to me, that's where the thick skin comes from. It's like you have to practice self-confidence to be able to master whatever you're trying to master in life and then go back and polish it. And definitely be aware of the areas in which my skin might be thin, right? Because in reality, that's what we're doing. We're thickening our skin constantly. So there's areas of our life that will be thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys also touched on like who is in your circle and stuff like that, whether it's friends, whether it's coworkers, and whether it's even lovers, because each of them have a different level closer to that thinner skin, and so it's like what they say is depending on who they are is like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then someone, when they got something to say, it's like, I'm listening, I'm all ears, because I know me, where I come from, and where I'm obviously striving to go. So what you are saying is not an attack. Maybe someone out there is going to hear it like, "Dang, are you guys really friends?" But it's like, that's how we talk, because I have thick skin. If I cannot have this extra layer that in a way protects me, but also allows me to take in that constructive criticism or feedback that maybe I need to hear, because sometimes we don't want to hear anything, negative that sounds negative. But if we actually read between the lines, there's something being said. And so it's like, okay, what are you saying? Like, I never thought about that. I never actually took a moment to self-examine myself in that area. So thank you so much for actually calling that out and something to improve on, because at work they're always doing that, and sometimes it's really good to know the difference from an attack versus a constructive criticism, because we know this in all areas of our lives, that there's someone who may be jealous or upset that you are striving and doing better, whatever they quote unquote is better, but you're just being your authentic self in whatever area that you have put in. And so when someone's saying some kind of constructive criticism, we have to also be open, like, okay, that okay. That's when the thick skin, I feel like, pops up. That guard's like, okay, I know that's an attack, but that's okay. Go ahead, because I think you're trying to test me and maybe get me out so I can quit, but I'm gonna have your job. So continue. Because I know you guys have went, Hector. I know you, Amara. Yeah, so I know we've been through that, where we'll have someone from work and they're like, and it's like that voice in your head's like, that is not no constructive critic. You really trying to come at me right now. Okay, I don't like your tone right now. So, and I'm just grateful for the thick skin. I got that from family, because all we do is talk about each other. We're in the room, and we're like, girl, So I come from an area of thick skin, but I have hidden that thin layer because it's so hard for me to, I guess, to get to that soft part where it's like, okay, should I let what you're saying get to me or not, or allow myself to feel something. And that's where my thick skin kind of gets in the way, where I'm blocking sometimes, like, was that a compliment? So it's like, where do you find the balance? Like, the thin skin and the thick skin, where it's like my thin skin starting to dissipate sometimes, where it's like this skin is like, oh, hey, say what you gotta say, because I'm here. What is it? And surrounding yourselves with people like-minded, but there are those moments where we actually can get a little soft, and that's what, for me, that's what I'm practicing on, actually, to get more, or maybe for myself. For others, I'm always soft for others to like
Mhm.
listen to them, and because I want to be present, because it's so hard to find individuals that are present and have that thick skin and be real with you. So yeah. Any feedback on that?
I
Yeah.
totally agree. Like I have so I like to be like, I'm a personal person, I'm social, I like people, and at the same time I'm like I don't, right? So it's I've had to learn to like my 5 people. These 5 are like they're like family. They're like more than blood to me. These are people that like I could step out these doors and have myself completely together, but inside here, they know like all the crazy. They know the thinnest parts of me, which is my vulnerability, right? And I think to me, as I like to say that I embrace vulnerability better now at this point in my life. I still have a lot of work to do, I believe, in regards to vulnerability. But I feel if it wasn't for those individuals, I wouldn't be growing and continue to be okay with the idea of strengthening my growth. And it's also made me aware of like how blessed I am to be able to call my bestie and say, hey, I need 10 minutes. I need to just vent and barf and let this out, and then don't let me talk about it again. He's like, okay, blah, 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 blah. He's like, 10 minutes are up, bitch, shut up. Like, and it feels good, right? Because sometimes
Yes.
we get stuck in these stupid victimized stories
Yeah.
of what happened to us versus why is this happening for me? This is happening for me. Even though it looks like a monster, even though this bitch just tried to throw me under the bus, I knew they'd try to do that. And because I know they ain't gonna do that, so instead of focusing on the problem, focus on the solutions for yourself. Do I want to show up and meet this individual in that low space where they're at? Or just stay here and be the observer of where that chaos is basically going nowhere because it's a dead end for them, because I'm not putting my energy there to open space for them to continue to grow that. So like work environments for me are challenging. This pandemic forced me to go back into that, like have a boss, coworkers and stuff. And I've been doing health and wellness, yoga, fitness for about 4 years already. So in a way, it helped me to strengthen my vulnerability, to go back in there and be in this environment. That's not necessarily, I don't want to call it toxic, right? Because then I'm affirming that it's toxic. So there's a part of me that's also toxic, which at one point it was and still kind of is, because that's my thin layer there. So like right now I'm processing on how can I navigate through this, understanding that people have different levels of awareness. People's jealousy and judgment shows up not necessarily by direct words, but most likely by passive aggressiveness. And that is lack of self-confidence. That is lack of self-worth. And to be able to sit back and be the observer, you're able to catch on to these things versus become a participant of the circus. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, all right, you just tried to throw me under the bus, but here's 2 semi trucks coming for you and you don't even see them.
Yeah.
It's like, so yeah.
I like that with the
and then also like it's open up to be able to build more intimate connections, right? Intimate relationships outside of those 5 people, like opportunities to network, like I have with all of you, and that connection that we're building, and having this connection of having like-minded individuals, but then understanding that we're all so different, right? And in this journey, we're like, wow, gaining these different awarenesses from each other, and now sharing this in this podcast with other people that might have their own awarenesses and get bits and pieces. And to me, like, having thick skin is important, but it's more important to embrace the thin layers of our life, I guess, right? Like that's like literally something that I've been working on this week. And Amari, like you literally just like bam, laid it out for me. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Oh,
No, and I like I really like, Hector, how you said it, like the thinnest parts of our skin is vulnerability. And when you put it like that, like for me, because like next week I have a lot going on with work. Next Wednesday, the 31st, it's Trans Day of Visibility. It's a nationally recognized day in opposite of Trans Day of Remembrance, for the day that remembers all the trans people that were lost. So my work is doing like this big panel thing on just trans awareness and visibility, and not just trans awareness, but like non-binary individuals and stuff like that. And I'm actually speaking on the panel. And so like thinking about it like that, like it's showing that thinner skin. It's being vulnerable because I want to ultimately let these people know. And like it's like 400 plus people signed up to be a part of this Zoom meeting.
Wow.
So I'm super stoked about it. But
Amazing.
it's the fact that I have to be vulnerable and I have to show that thinner skin, that thinnest layer. And it's like an hour's time, but to try and be as vulnerable as possible to make an impactful impression, it's like, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because I feel like one of the biggest things about my job, like one of the biggest challenges that I face, is the fact that I don't face a lot of the restrictions or a lot of the discrimination or like just that negative environment that I have in previous work experiences. Like Hector, we talked, not Hector, Nacho, we talked about it when we did my interview, like how like,
Right.
I told you everything about just previous work experiences. And it's like, to know that that's not a factor, that's been my biggest challenge, because I'm used to having to have that thicker skin on pretty much in most areas of my life, especially the professional areas of my life. And so now to come into this environment where that thick skin for me mentally has always been a part of my work outfit, just like my badge, my uniform, that's something I go to work with. It's kind of the complete opposite. And for me, it's just like, then thinking about it when it comes to my zodiac, like I'm a Scorpio, and like Scorpions, the thinnest part of them is like that underbelly, the underside. They have like that tough, thick armor, that shell on the outside, but like underneath, it's really just super soft, and that's me. And it's just like, because underneath is where my heart is. And I feel like I have a constant struggle within myself of trying to balance which skin do I wear here and why, because in my mind, I know like what I've come across and that defense mechanism to show my shell. But when it comes to being at work, it's like it's not a factor in the environment. And it kind of becomes like a mental battle for me when it's like, I know I'm in this environment, but I'm still meeting new people. So these new people are a part of this environment, but what are their individual mindsets? And now it's like, to have to express to people how we can be more inclusive, and how big businesses and big entities like this can focus on those things. It's like, how do I make sure I show this thinner skin, but then going forward not revert to showing this tougher shell? Because when I show that thick skin, it can ultimately give the wrong impression. Because like we said, like there's a side of us, we've all been in that environment and work, which is like my professional mindset and my personal feelings ain't in alignment right now. Right. Because if we wasn't here, like if that paycheck wasn't a factor, this conversation would be going different.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's where I'm stuck at right now. It's just like, how do I make sure that I'm being this transparent and showing that thinner skin, but then going forward, because I know this in and of itself is going to open a lot of opportunities for me at work. So I'm going to have a lot of people who want to get to know me and want to hear more about me. And and I kid you not, because like I talk about this podcast all the time, and actually have somebody who loves to hear it. So that's super cool. Like I said, this, because I feel like I have an amazing opportunity to merge two things that I love, because I absolutely love like just doing this and spending time with you guys. And I feel like we don't, even the fact that we're not on like camera every single day, the fact that like I love the energy in our chat, and it's just like, it's a consistent, it never changes. Like the vibe that we have when we're just chatting and texting between us is literally the exact same vibe that we have when we're sitting here face to face. And so it's like that comes with showing that thinner skin. Cause like I said, this is an area I feel like I can show my thinner skin. And
Right.
I feel like now that that's being a factor that's being brought into my professional life, it's just like that's why I literally, like I said, I be pleased if B of A is ever like, oh, we want to just see what you guys are about. I'm like, we gonna, because I feel like this is something that can really open up opportunities,
Right.
and really merge that. Because for me to be a trans woman of color, even like starting off at an entry level position, like the fact that this company has relieved so many stresses in my life, and not only like the life for me as an individual, but the life that I can provide for others. Like B doesn't have to worry about anything. My niece and nephew don't have to worry about anything. And it's just like, it comes from the security that I get at this job. And so I have to be more transparent here, but then in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm still coming across individuals. And even though I'm meeting all the amazing individuals in this company, like not every single apple in the basket is ripe. There's always one rotten apple somewhere in that basket. And the more that I'm going through these apples and meeting these people, it's just like, when am I going to hit a rotten apple? Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that this company is so transparent about speaking up and speaking my mind, and like just for everyone. So it wouldn't be a matter of feeling like, oh, there's the other foot, it just dropped. Let me shut down, let me put on this thicker skin, let me go back to how I've been at work.
Right.
It's a matter of, let's have this conversation and let's move past this. Even if we don't end up on the same foot, the fact that we can, in this environment, still come together and support each other, that's ultimately what we need to be able to do. And to know that I can be someone who bridges a community of people who literally jobs are fucking needed. The fact that people have to be on the streets and struggle and survive when there are companies out there that will hire them, and the fact of like who you are as a person is not a factor. Like that's not something that's weighted in. It's what you bring to the table, what you're willing to do, how are you able to improve and bring, like, do you have the be like, can you add to this community? Can you make us better? Like, what do you, like, I'm in a position to do that for a community, and it just meshes so well with it. So it's like, I'm always at a constant struggle because like I'm showing people thin skin like all the time, but at the same time, it's just like, now if I'm in a situation where it's like all new people, nobody knows me, it's just Amari introducing myself to these people, it's just like that mindset of, do I need to have a little bit of thick skin in this situation? Because I could be myself and be super transparent, but that might not translate to somebody if I come out completely to people, which I have no problem doing, like just telling them about my life when I introduce myself to people. It's just like, how is that going to affect our professional relationship going forward? Because most of the stuff I do right now is support.
Right.
So I'm supporting people who are going through training, learning my line of business, going through stuff like that. So it's just like, when I have to get on meetings and I'm like doing trainings and pullbacks and stuff like that, how do I know what I told you in the beginning is not affecting that? Like, if it affects how you come to me for support, if it affects how you feel I'm supporting you, like how do I know that's not impacting that? And if so, how can we move past that? Like, it's not a matter of, oh, it is, that's a bad thing, it's a negative thing, let's sweep it under the rug, let's not talk about it. It's a matter of, how can we move past that factor? How can we make that something like it can still be a factor, but it's so minuscule that it's not actually weighted. So that's the only thing where my struggle is. And it's just like, I have to continuously remind myself, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, like, I'm here for a reason. I've been given these opportunities for a reason. So as long as I can continue to remind myself of that and surround myself with people who remind me of that, like both outside of work and inside of work, then I feel like it's a better balance for me when I'm challenging those moments of, oh, I have to have thicker skin on right now. I have to have tougher skin on right now, because ultimately what's going to be the outcome of the situation, I want to be prepared for it versus letting myself be vulnerable, showing that thin skin.
It's almost so easy to be
Makes
vulnerable sometimes in those
sense.
moments.
Yeah. I think I can relate a lot to what you're saying. When I go back into the workforce, like it's mostly in behavioral health and the HIV field. That's just kind of where I kind of like when I was very young, that was kind of like my opening into something more solid. But one thing I've realized, I think, with this particular organization, which I'm not going to mention any names, because I think every organization is doing their best to serve the needs of their community. But there tends to be a point in which organizations are no longer necessarily serving; they're competing against each other, and that shows up in the services. That shows up even in the employees that they hire to run some of these programs, right? I think that's one thing that I became more aware of, just being back in this organization for, since November. I'm a catalyst. So whatever I do, like I might not be like super there physically present with something, but my thoughts, my energy goes into that. And I almost like I put it in a room for when I have to go and do that, right? So when I got back into that field, like I saw this amazing program with so many potentials, and I'm okay, let's go do this. But then as I started experiencing some of my challenges in my position, of course, like things are showing up where I have to show that thick skin, right? That lion, like, wait a minute, this is the way it has to be. Or even speaking my voice without trying to overpower my superiors, like that's big for me. So one thing I realized is that I'm probably more of a consultant when it comes to this type of work. Like that's a big takeaway for me as I'm moving from a negative situation, right? Like there can be positive without negativity. It's like the yin and the yang. Like you see the negativity, it's like, okay, how can we flip this? So that's kind of how I'm flipping this for me. I realized also that people who, and we've all been there, I'm sure I'm there in an aspect of my life right now, our unhealed parts of our life show up very ugly. And my thick skin is important when I'm able to see things from a different perspective. Okay, why is this person acting this way? There's a mirror here. This person is seeing something that's triggering him or her about me. I know it's not me because I don't have that feeling towards this person, even though it's getting to the point where the feeling of punching each other in the face is getting kind of mutual. But I'm able to step back. And a teacher, I think I shared this before, a teacher once told me, what quality of God is trying to show up in me? And when I do that, that automatically makes me not necessarily allow myself to be stepped all over, but it allows me to embrace my thick skin, embrace my vulnerability, and see the bigger picture. And a lot of times, again, it's unhealed areas of people's lives that make us create conflict amongst each other. And I think a lot of these organizations hire people who have that life experience, right? Who are HIV positive, who have been through the road of recovery. But the pressure and the stress is so big, and so everything is so unstructured that it brings the employee back into that mental space, because they're working with populations that are probably even worse than what they were ever. Like you're people dealing with homelessness, coming into the centers with, high on meth, like a complete disaster. So there's only so much funding. So employees are underpaid. There's not enough vacation for people to take. They end up using it on mental days off because it's too much to deal with. And then they're really not addressing their mental health because in a way it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna have a self-care day. And unless you have a solid routine of what self-care looks like that day off is gonna be on the couch, having junk food, being sad, you know, and all that stuff. Instead of like, if you have the skills, if you're able to teach your employees the skills to, all right, you're gonna have a mental day off. What is your mental day off gonna look like? Like, okay, you're gonna go for a walk, you're gonna go for a hike, you're gonna go have coffee with a friend, you're gonna, you know, like, you're gonna go have a pedicure, you're gonna go be out in nature, you're gonna go for a workout, you're gonna go to an art class. Like, to me, something that's gonna bring your peace, that's self-care. But people in that field are so overwhelmed and so drained to be out and sleep all day because you're not only you're not dealing with your emotional issues because you're dealing with all the emotional issues that are going on with your clients at work that aren't necessarily going anywhere because the workload is so much you really can't help them. And then you have these individuals who want to be these power lights in the community, so then they start competing with each other, you know, and to the point where I'm like, okay, dude, you're trying to compete with me. You are not my competition. My competition, I see every day in the mirror, that competition. So, honey, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your time, and you're getting on my lane, baby. And when you get on my lane, I freaking swing my tail and throw you off, you know? And I have to do that because it's like, okay, you know, if I'm not going to be able to work with a team of people, then I need to embrace my vulnerability and be okay with now stepping into the unknown or somewhat known, which seems kind of fearful because there's, you know, I'm hesitant. I'm like, okay, everything was going well before the pandemic and then I had to stop. And then what if it goes wrong again? But then all that, it's all personal, right? Everything that we go through is personal. It's how we're going, how we're showing up, how we're evolving from it. It's not about the other people. It's not about our boss. It's not about our coworker that we want to slap around sometimes. I have to let that one out, you know? Because at the end of the day, when you're self-aware, at the end of the day, you love these people. You love them because you step away and you're able to see the pain that they're going through. And you know that whatever anger, whatever jealousy, whatever, you know, daggers they try to throw you, it's basically just they're throwing it to themselves. You know, and you're so thick because you're a fucking warrior that none of those daggers, none of those things are actually touching you because now you're just a witness of everything that's going on. And all that's going back to the source of where it's coming from, either for their healing or for their own destruction. It's like you're either going to wake up with this or you're going to just fall deeper. And as you become self-aware, you have to be okay to allow people that are not part of that circle that uplifts you to stay where they're at. Like, honey, you want to stay in the funk, go for it. It's down there, go for it. I'm not going down there with you. You could come up here and you could leave and go back down there whenever you want. But I'm not going down there with you.
Wow, that was a mouthful. That was good. No, because I agree. You guys both touched on some really important parts, especially it's interesting when you have to, gosh, here I go blink. Because I'm getting so excited on what you guys are saying because, God damn.
It's coming back.
It's good. No, I can't even think right now. I'm like having like I'm high on what you guys have been giving me.
Both are making me mentally orgasm today.
Right, that like, is exactly what I'm like. I'm on multiple. I'm on like orgasm 15 right now. So I'm like, okay.
I'm telling you this. I'm happy we did this in the morning because doing this, I feel like doing this earlier in the morning. This like I feel like our conversations that we have just set me up for like just a mental high for the rest of my day.
Yes.
And I feel like after this, this is just gonna give me like just a sense of mental clarity for my day. And it's just like, that's gonna be relaxing. It's a Sunday, got other stuff to do, get all that stuff done. And then it's just like, but thinking about it, how you just said, Hector, like, what does self-care look like? Because you're right, it should be more than just taking a mental health day, because if you just take that day and there's nothing actually done with it, or you don't have like a consistent routine, then it's not really fixing the issue. It's like a band-aid.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I'm like, dang, what
Right.
do I do for self-help? What do I do
Right.
for self-care? I've been on vacation for like 3 days. What have I done? And I'm like, oh shit, we took the dogs to the dog park. People got her hair done. Like we get up and have a healthy routine, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
You can't forget that.
yeah,
We
I like that.
sometimes I feel like not, maybe it's that competitiveness in our head, or we're trying to compare. Like you hear someone else's mental day where they just like, oh my gosh, well I didn't do all that, but that's for them, and sometimes like for me, like I'll hear like I didn't do all that and I should have did that, but then I look back, just like you're saying, like we took the dogs out and stuff like that, and we had our moments. I did have that mental relaxed day, that day that I took for myself to just breathe in life itself, because we're always on go mode when we go to work or just in life in general. Sometimes 2 days off is not enough, so it's like, because like I've shared with
Mhm.
people who take vacation, I say take 2 weeks, because the first week you're still coming down from clocking out. Like you're waking up probably in weird times of the day where you're like, oh no, work is not tomorrow. Oh, wait, work is next week. You cannot clock out because you're like, should I enjoy this? Like, what's going on? And it's like, no. And then that second week hits, and it's like,
Exactly.
I'm off. Like, cause I did that like twice in my life, and man, I recommend that for anybody. If you got able to take 2 weeks off, take 2 weeks off. You owe yourself that, because I'm sorry, 2 days is not enough. Okay. Even when it's like, I'm grateful that now I'm finally Monday through Friday again, where I get Saturday and Sunday off. That's wonderful, because when you have that one day and then you go back and then that one day, it's just, I'm sorry, that's cruel. I'm sorry, that's cruel to the human person, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's like you never had the chance to breathe. But if you work on a routine, you create a balance, you're able to know when to clock in and clock out. And that's hard to get to because it takes practice. You're like, okay, so now I'm off. And that's where I think it's helpful if we create a routine for ourselves, set time gaps, like at 6 o'clock, I'm going to take a nap. I don't give a I have to take a nap. Like I
Yeah.
need to unwind. And then at 7 o'clock, I wake up and do some cardio. And it depends on what your time is in the day. But for me, that has helped me, because I have to find some type of balance for myself to breathe, mentally breathe, spiritually breathe, emotionally breathe, because one of those three factors is going to be off. And I need the other two to hold it up. It's like my spirit may be like, I'm hungry. And my mental is like, would you shut up? And then my emotions are, I want to cry. So it's like trying to I got to handle all of them. It's like, y'all, there's a lot to this. Okay. So trying to keep them
One
in.
coming at a time, please.
Right. One at a time. Can you just not speak right now? Because I'm trying to think of ways to communicate. So I think it's so important for us to find that moment and not listen to people how they have conquered certain things in their life to compare it to us, but more so like take it as an insight, take it as like, wow, that's amazing. I never thought of it that way. And that's one of the things that I'm grateful that I love to listen to everybody's conquering. I love to listen to everybody's stories, obviously, but it feeds me. That's for me, that's my food. I have to have like this type of session because I don't know it all. And I feed off of that. I grow off of that. It helps me open my eyes because even Amari, going back to when you were talking about kind of like how B of A is like really having you speak for the panel of like trans. If I didn't have that conversation with you, it's because I feel like a lot of companies, kind of like what you were saying, Hector, and you, Amari, where there's a lot of companies they focus on the trauma of like the evolution of it versus on what happened afterwards. Like Amari, in our conversation, you're like, where do you begin? A lot of people want to know, well, how was it in the beginning? Then you translate, no, my life actually began now. At this age, when I'm Amari, this is life now. I don't talk about who that was because that's no more that the whole point of it. So that to me was the biggest eye opener. And I'm like, wow, like, because you never know if you come off across offensive when you're like, so how was the transformation? It's like, can we not talk about that? Because everybody wants to talk about that. That's not really what it is. And so I'm just grateful that you shed that light to me, because that's so important. And it's important for companies to really respect that. Just because you hear the word trans, I say it's a transformation in life to me being me, my authentic self. Whether what other way you want to take it, it's not like, well, what's the life? No, no, no. This is me, and this is me now. And it started at this. Okay, how about that? It's not I was born it. No,
Yeah.
this is life now. And so that
And
I'm
that's why,
so grateful.
that's one reason why I can't speak enough about them, because it was never, going into this, even when they asked me, it was never a sense or feeling or trying to make me feel like someone's poster child or like somebody's PSA feed a kid for a day announcement. Like that, it was never that feeling. It's always been genuinely, how can we as an entity make and support both you as our employee and you supporting your community? How can we be better for the community that you come from? Because obviously you being of this community coming here, it's been a positive experience. How can we show others and spread that? Because
Right.
I feel like people get so caught up on the external experience, and a lot of it is just what we've been trained on, which is our social constructs, like our world norms. And we can't always separate personal and professional. That it's not feasibly possible at all times. And to know it's like they not only see that, but they make it a call out on how can we get around that factor.
Right. I love that.
Because at the end of the day, people come from all different types of backgrounds, nationalities, physical descriptions, like covered in tattoos, not covered in tattoos, like all those things. Like, but it doesn't speak on what they can bring to the table as far as the value in their character. Like it doesn't make them any less qualified than a perfect polished picture of someone. Like it doesn't cause any type of separation. And I feel like for a really long time, a lot of companies didn't understand that, and they equated your professional capability to your self presentation. And it hasn't been like a thing at all for me at Bank of America. And like, I was reading something like a while back on, there was a law passed in California. I don't know if you know this, Nacho, but wasn't there like a law passed that they couldn't discriminate against natural hairstyles? And it's just like,
yeah, there was interesting laws over here that's going on.
But my logic is, why would that even need to be a law?
Okay, thank you. Like that.
Like,
don't even get me started.
So it's like, if people were like all excited, like, yeah, this is done, businesses can't do this no more, but from just like a human, like how is that?
And to me, that's like telling on
be a law?
themselves. That's like
Why?
telling on themselves when they make that even a
Exactly.
situation to pass. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
So now they got a law passed for big lips. Okay, so I can have my natural big lips. Thank you, because a lot of y'all trying to have them.
Exactly.
It's like, what does that mean? All I know is that a lot of businesses, right now, it's breaking from the old traditional ways of so scared of what you don't understand, to now, like, we have got to work. We have got to really push ourselves to understand the others. That we have to push ourselves to understand what we're scared of.
Because you have to realize, they have to.
Yeah.
It's the only option. Because if you think about it, the new workforce that's coming in is a lot of millennials and a lot of the Z generation coming in now. Like, typical norm of society is, be it from their gender identity, their gender expression, their sexual orientation, like all of it. They don't fall under those social constructs. And so these companies are either going to have to change or basically die, because the people that they are typically used to serving, the people that help them build their giant wealth and their name, like they're slowly but surely dying off. Like they're not going to be around forever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the fact that the masses are changing from what they were used to be,
And aggressively,
they have to either adapt or die.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why, like, I love Bank of America, because it's like, why would we sit here and wait until the last second to do this? Like, why not implement this now? Why not make it a norm that should have been a norm way back when? But the fact that the people who were in control and the majority back then, that's what they wanted, that's their say so. And now that generation, that group of people are slowly, and it's sad to say, like, I don't want to say I'm like, oh yeah, just wait for all the old people to die, but I mean, you get older,
you get less
life.
willing to
So
change.
as they're going out, we're
We all
coming in, and it's just like,
Okay.
and I feel old. Like I'm barely creeping into my 30s, and I just like, I feel like,
Right.
man, I'm over the hill. I need a walker some days, and it's just because I'm constantly and it's like crazy, because I feel like I'm constantly learning. Like I feel like where I am right now as a millennial, looking at it as there was a group of people in my community prior to fighting to get equality, and
Yeah.
I am at the phase in that fight of it being gotten and being more of a social norm, because
Right. Yeah.
we've gotten the equality. Now it's at the point of making sure pretty much every sector of us get the equality.
Right.
So it's just spreading, and then I'm already looking at it like there are kids and generations after me who are teaching me stuff, like, it's just mind blowing. Like I when I was figuring out like this, the whole pronouns things and how to identify, like I always say, I said this before, like I will call you by your name at all times. If I feel like I'm ever messing up or not keeping up with the changing of pronouns, because like I didn't know what Z pronouns were.
Yeah, no, and
Like
we're from that
like,
same generation where of that too, so I understand
like
that.
what are Z? Like I know they them there all day, but I don't know what like the pronouns are. Like I'm learning what demisexual is and like other types of identifications and orientations, and it's just like I feel old and out of date.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to keep up with the time. So I know the people who are generations above me are definitely on their way out. So it's like you have to keep up or die at this point. And I feel like Bank of America is getting on that. Like we want to expose these younger generations to what we have to offer and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to make the world a better place through you.
Right.
So that way they're prepared to come into the workforce, because at some point they're going to have to come into the workforce and pick a professional path.
Right.
And it may be something that they choose to like early on. It may be something that they fall into, find a passion for. It may be something that they end up doing just because they need a job. Like it happens to us all at some point in our life. Like I've had jobs where I literally I dreaded every moment from the time I clocked in to the time I clocked out, but I knew I needed the money to make sure I was surviving. And I have jobs like where like now I don't even feel like I'm at work half the time. I feel like I'm literally hanging out with family.
That's awesome.
To have them ready and prepared to make those options and those healthy decisions, and let them know like that coming as you, and there is a sense of mental health and mental clarity that comes with that. Because if you can go into your field of profession and know that you can thrive, and entering sets you up for success. Like you already know, granted you can't roll out of the bed and like morning breath going into work, but you can go in presentable as yourself, right, and still make an impactful presence in that day. Like it's just an amazing feeling. So I feel like a lot of these companies are trying to get on the times, because you have to change your time.
Yeah, things are definitely changing, and it's interesting how you're mentioning the dynamics of your work And like in the nonprofit way, in the program that I've been in for since November, it's kind of a place where people could just come in as a art. That's beautiful, but it's an organization and it doesn't work. And I think, again, like going back to like what self-care is, like to me it's one of those things where you have to be aware of how I'm having a nacho. I'm losing track of thought.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pass that on. Tell those other two to get back.
But no, hold on. So I kind of want to touch a little bit on like on the game of and. That's what I was gonna say. The game of and. When it comes to like your self-care, like we're always doing something, but we're just not aware that we're doing something. You know, I'll give an example. I like walking to work because it helps me clear my mind. It centers me. I like to breathe the air. And when I get to that door, like, all right, here I come. And I come with 10,000, like, let's go, you know? So when I'm working with people more in the health and wellness aspect and coaching, like I like to bring awareness to some of the activities that we already do in the day, and how can we create more mindfulness and focus on these activities so they could actually be nurturing for ourselves. Like, all right, you have a commute to work, you either walk or you take the train. How can you make that commute to work relaxing? That's what I ask myself. I'm like, all right, so I could actually walk through the park. Sometimes I walk through the park, I sit down for 10 minutes, I close my eyes, I breathe deeply, and then I continue to walk to work. I got my 20 minutes of self-care in the morning, and I was also producing and taking myself to work. So there's always ways to embrace self-care by just being aware. Like washing dishes. Washing dishes could be one of the most annoying things you can washing dishes.
It's therapeutic for
However, when I use that opportunity of washing dishes for 10 minutes and just breathe and be with the water and be with the dish and on purpose not think of anything else other than the dishes and breathe and smile, that takes care of my self-care for 10 minutes. So sometimes life, what I'm saying is life is very busy. Life gives us opportunities to produce, to grow. With that comes responsibility, tasks that we have to accomplish, goals, steps that we have to accomplish towards our goals. So it's important to be aware of what we're doing, like even taking the dogs for a walk. That's right. So when I was in Florida, I would tell my besties, like, I'm taking Nacho and Lala for a walk in the mornings. And to them, I think it was kind of like, oh, how sweet, like he's taking that responsibility. I'm like, bitches, I'm taking some self-care first thing in the morning with these two pups, you know, and at the same time, I'm contributing to the household that I was living in, right? Because they don't have to worry about that. So like there's ways to do that. And of course, we want to set that time aside. That way, when we do take that mental day off, like we structure it. It's like, okay, I'm taking the mental day off tomorrow. I'm gonna take naps. Like naps are big for me. When I'm not in the work field, like in the workforce field, like I literally take religiously a 30-minute nap every day. Like I turn my phone off, I set my alarm on, 30 minutes, I lay there and I feel good and I have no guilt about it. So I think no matter what work environment we're in, what field of work we're in, it's important to be able to take care of ourselves, consciously take care of ourselves. We continue to develop a healthy layer of thick skin. Right? Because thick skin could be like also part of like like our past, right? Like, the chancla and how tough we were growing up. I feel like as people of color, like I feel like my parents gave me a lot of tough love,
Okay.
and there's a difference between that and vulnerability, because a lot of times that tough love made us not embrace our vulnerability, right? Because it's like, oh, you have to be strong and you're a warrior and this and that. And yeah, you are all that. However, in order to become more of that in a more graceful, polished, loving, and kind way for the world around you, an empowering way, we have to continue to embrace those vulnerable areas of our life, and then also see how can we polish the layers of thickness that we've acquired in a positive way. Like, cool, I can hold space for this person. That's my power. However, it's not in my power to take their pain and make it my own. Right?
Right.
Yeah. See,
There
this
was
is what I say. Like, your life is like that Florida orange juice commercial, because you just be squeezing everything out of it. And I like how you put that the power of the end game. I like that. I've never heard it put like that, but I'm definitely gonna start incorporating that, because if I look at it like that, you're right. I realize how I can get a lot more self-care out of things that I'm already doing that I wasn't even mindful about before.
Just breathe.
Yeah. And I like there's a
Even
part that
even
you
if you're, I tell people, I tell people real quick. I tell people in the corporate world, like even when you're at your office, like if you have a lot of work to do and you just don't have in your mind, I don't have that time. Continue to do the work that you're doing, but this time set the phone for 10 minutes and the alarm for 10 minutes, and just focus on that task, single pointed, breathing, consciously breathing. Like if you're returning emails, just consciously breathe, bring that in, and you're going to see how you're even going to push your productivity to the next level, because you're embracing presentness in that moment. You're embracing mindfulness in that email that you're sending by breathing and being aware, or whatever task you're doing for 10 minutes. When the alarm goes off, you're going to be like, whoa, I'm on a roll. And you are in such a state of peace and focus. But again, it's bringing that awareness. There's chaos in my mind. There's chaos around me. However, I am not going to be that chaos. So I'm gonna separate myself so I could actually do something. And then that's when we're able to show up, right? That's when people see us as like, wow, why are you so calm? I'm like, why am I going to lose my cookies for if it's not going to get anything done?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thick skin, thick love. There was something we were talking about as when we grow up and in our colorful world of when we're up our upbringing, like you were saying, we're taught to have a thick skin, but I think what makes us get through is that thick love, because there's one thing of building that layer of thick skin where you're not vulnerable, but you also have to have that thick love to let you know you don't have to always be hard. There's a softness there that must embrace, and if you keep that thick just as much as your thick skin is, you'll have that receiving and giving easily and fluidly, and have a wonderful understanding versus judging it and being kind of like, no, that's too soft, I can't have that, but it's like, no, you can come and talk to me. What's up? Tell me what's going on. We could put on a facade because of the way we probably carry ourselves is very intimidating to a lot of others, because we embrace that thickness of ourself, and we have met that thickness within ourselves eye to eye. And so people who are having that trouble, whether it's their thick skin or they're just wearing their emotions on their sleeve, it's misunderstanding and it's misinterpreted sometimes from the outside individuals who haven't even got there yet. And so it's so important that, not saying we have to be a beacon to so many people, but being a beacon to ourselves is a beacon to others. Those who come into contact with us, it touches them. Even just a simple hello. Amara, if you say hello to somebody, someone's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna hug her. Like, pandemic, honey. But or Hector, I can tell just probably being around you and your aura, it's just like, it's very inviting. It's inviting even in your pictures, so it's like, I love this. I really do. This is thick love and thick skin. So it's like, whatever you say to
Mhm.
me, it may sound like an attack from other people who are listening, but to me, that's love because of my thick skin, we got thick love. So it's like I know you're not attacking. Like, girl, take that off. That ain't cute. That ain't cute, and we ain't kicking it. But you know, it's like
Right?
it's a fun. But we do that
Smooth
to build
breeze.
it. You know, so it's like, girl, you can poke at me. It's okay, but no, I'm gonna poke you back. And you know, so I love being around thick love people because that comes with thick skin and thick love. So it's like, you know, I'm not coming from an attack or jealousy. It's coming like I'm your friend, and you know, I'm gonna always keep around. And I gotta make fun of you sometimes because we gotta keep that skin a little thick. You know, so.
Like, girl, why'd you overplug your eyebrows?
Like, I see this as a connection. Hey, we ain't gonna. I'm gonna wait. We're gonna wait. We can be a little late. You go handle that. I'll help it for you. You missed the spot. You know. Uh, well, I know it's getting time, Amari.
And I think it's also the opportunity. Yeah.
I was gonna say I gotta hop off here. Yeah. Love
Well,
y'all
thank
both.
you.
Always happy to have these conversations. I'm probably gonna end up texting y'all later today.
Yes.
So
Please do. Please do.
both. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
Likewise. Enjoy.
Enjoy the
Love
wedding.
you.
And that completes today's Authentic Self episode on the Nachos Cafe podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget, it's not about how the world sees you. It's about how you embrace your own world.